Chapter 51, Quest Completion and Next Quest. You are listening at novelfull.audio. As the clock ticked, the next 24 hours flew by. Liam stayed logged in, grinding non-stop the entire time. In about 48 hours, he had single-handedly mined 100 stacks of 100 iron ore, adding up to a whopping 10,000. Because of this marathon, he had fallen behind the top players. More and more players were joining the game, drawn in by the mystery surrounding it. Liam paid the guards the entrance fees and stepped through the city gates, immediately finding himself surrounded by a crowd of level 15 to level 20 players. While that was respectable, some of the leaderboard names were already hitting level 25. I wonder if guilds are already forming, Liam mused as he crossed the street and ducked into a back alley with no quest givers present. The alley wasn't overrun with players, but there were still plenty of NPCs milling about. Liam knew this would change when word of the black market got out, but he wanted to capitalize on the quiet before then. He navigated through the crowd and entered a bustling street lined with vendors. Most had simple stalls, looking ready to pack up and leave at a moment's notice. Exotic meat peddlers, rare herb sellers, and black witches hawking potions created a series of unique sights within the narrow alley. Liam calmly took it all in before stopping in front of a specific old man. The old man had his wares spread out on a blanket on the ground, and a few heavy hitters were already gathered around him. "Ah! Young man! Good to see you again." The training hall instructor, who was also among the crowd, waved to Liam, surprising the other players nearby. This was the first time they had seen an NPC taking the initiative to speak to a player, acting as if they were old friends. "Greetings, senior." Liam bowed and pulled the bear's head from his inventory, still dripping blood, and handed it to the startled man. For a moment, the man was speechless, staring at the corpse of the beast that had ruined his future. He looked at the severed head, then at Liam in disbelief. You killed him." Liam simply nodded, remaining respectfully silent. "Thank you. Thank you so much, young man. I'm forever in your debt." The instructor wiped away tears, patting Liam with a face full of conflicting emotions. At the same time, Liam received a string of notifications. Ding. Quest, kill the bear king Barabara and bring its head to the training ground instructor, has been completed. Ding. 10,000 experience points have been rewarded. Ding. You have leveled up. The reward for the unique quest was indeed generous. The experience points were almost comparable to what he had gained from soloing the field boss. Leveling wasn't Liam's top priority, but reaching certain regions of the continent, especially certain kingdoms, required a high enough level, so he was pleasantly surprised. But what he was really looking forward to was what came next. Liam waited patiently, giving the instructor time to process everything and collect himself. After a few moments of silence, the man sighed and began to speak again. "If only I had had the strength to do this back then. Alas, now, it's too late. It's too late for everything." The instructor sighed repeatedly. Liam smiled inwardly, recognizing his cue. "Is there anything I can do to help you, senior? Please tell me what happened. You can count on me." His usual cold demeanor had vanished, replaced by a look of genuine concern. The instructor looked touched, patting Liam affectionately and shaking his head. "No, Liam. Forget about it. I only tell you to forget about it because I consider you like a brother." Liam gave a wry smile, continuing to play his role. "Brother, don't say that. Even if it costs me my life, I want to help you. Please, let me share your burden." The man let out a long sigh, looking down at the ground and speaking reluctantly. All right. Since you insist, I'll tell you, but I suggest you stay as far away from this as possible. This is extremely dangerous and beyond your capabilities. You're a talented young man. Don't ruin your future by listening to a fool." Liam nodded attentively, keeping his eyes fixed on the man. "The truth is, I haven't completely given up yet." The instructor clenched his fists. "Because my foundation was irreparably damaged, I've been stuck at the training hall all these years as just an instructor. But I haven't given up. Chapter 52, Hands Covered in Calluses. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The instructor looked directly at Liam and continued, far south in the Gresh kingdom, there's a small town ruled by a lord who is a disciple of an ancient medicine master. I've heard this master can heal the body and even help someone crippled like me. That's all the information I've been able to gather. The journey south is treacherous. It's mostly dense forests, and those lands are home to wild beasts and equally savage men. My only wish is to visit that town and see if it's true. Maybe even someone as useless as me could have a fresh start. Liam's eyes lit up. There it was. Immediately, notifications popped up, ding, unique chain quest part B activated, ding, quest cannot be refused, ding, visit the town Jahiria and obtain the cure for crippled meridians. Liam read the quest and scratched his chin. This wasn't the quest he was expecting. He was after a valuable elixir recipe that would perfect the body, granting an ideal constitution that would be the envy of everyone, but it seemed he wasn't there yet. That was to be expected since he barely knew the details of the chain quest. After all, he was just a slave in his past life, so how could he know the specifics? But judging by how things were going, either the next quest or the one after it should give him the results he wanted, so, he had to patiently keep working on this chain quest, even if the end result wasn't what he expected. Unique quests were still far better than the others, and there was bound to be a hidden treasure at the end if it wasn't the elixir recipe. Maybe it would be something related to cleansing or strengthening the soul. Liam knew better than to doubt the usefulness of a unique quest, so he quickly accepted it with a smile. I'll risk my life to get the cure for you, senior, he said, bowing. Sigh. All right. Be careful and remember to take care of yourself. My life is already over anyway, the instructor mumbled and walked away, no longer interested in the black market. As he left, Liam's expression returned to normal. What a drama queen. He chuckled and focused on the next task. He went back to the old man's stall and leaned down to talk to him. How much is this? What about this? He randomly picked up items and asked for their prices. The old man initially looked annoyed because no one dared to ask the prices directly. All the items in his shop were rare and couldn't be found anywhere else. When Liam started touching things without a second thought, he got angry. He was about to swat his hand away when his expression subtly changed. He stared at Liam's calloused hands. These were the hands of a hard-working man. He no longer seemed annoyed and looked Liam up and down. The young man wore simple clothes and was drenched in sweat. He smelled strongly of raw mineral ore. The old man's expression softened, and he rubbed his long, thin beard. Don't get my stuff dirty, kid. Ah. Sorry, elder, Liam said, quickly backing away and acting humble. Please forgive me. I didn't mean to offend you. Can I give you some iron ore as compensation? It's all I have. Liam recited words from his memory as best as he could. In his previous life, these were just coincidences that players had discovered by accident, but now he was carefully orchestrating everything, and unlike before at the training hall, this time he wasn't seizing the fate of someone who had wronged him in the past. This was someone completely unrelated to him, but he didn't care. If he had to step on and steal 100 people's fate, he would still do it. In the end, this was simply a brutal fight for survival, and he had no choice but to use the only weapon in his arsenal, knowledge. Knowledge about the future and the chaos that was coming. Chapter 53, Hidden Class Quest. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Edited content. Forgive me, please. I didn't mean to offend you. Can I offer the old man some iron ore as compensation? It's all I have on me. Liam said humbly. Hearing his sincerity, the old man softened. He had a real soft spot for the underdogs, the ones even fate seemed to have abandoned. Hey, kid. He looked at Liam, his blue eyes sharp. His age and frailty seemed to vanish, replaced by the presence of an expert. You want to get stronger? Huh? Liam was surprised. You look like someone who's not afraid of hard work and getting your hands dirty with the smell of metal. The old man smiled. Want to learn an ancient craft that can give you tremendous power and strength? Ding. Hidden class quest activated. Ding. Quest, smithing, master the craft of weapon making. Ding. Reward, the elders' trust and respect. Ding. Accept quest. Liam chuckled to himself. The reward sounded useless, but it couldn't be that simple. This was a hidden class quest. After all, what the description didn't say was that the reward would get a boost based on how quickly he finished the quest. The race was on. I accept. Liam bowed quickly and hurried away from the stall. Haha. That's one hard-working kid. The elder chuckled and went back to chatting with his other customers. Liam slowed down a bit further away. He knew he didn't have to rush too much. He still had 72 hours, more importantly, he had other business to take care of since the black market was closing in a couple of hours. Liam circled around and ended up at another stall. This one was more crowded, with players excitedly haggling. It was a gambling den of sorts, and a pet shop for hunters. Surprisingly, a familiar face was there, and she gasped when she spotted Liam. Alex was trying to find Ray some good pets when she saw him. He'd been on her mind a lot lately. You said you'd be here at noon. Alex blurted out, flustered. She was still nervous about the whole thing. What's up with you? I said I'd meet you at noon. Didn't say anything about not being here before then, did I? Liam didn't even look at her, and went to the shopkeeper, a middle-aged woman with a big mole. Welcome, she greeted Liam, her face brightening. Welcome, Mr. Handsome. Looking to buy something? Look at all these eggs. Who knows what's inside? Maybe a dragon, maybe a phoenix. Wanna try your luck? Liam looked at the eggs, all different shapes and sizes, arranged neatly. They all had different patterns and shapes, making them look mysterious. People were trying to guess what kind of beast was inside based on the patterns, shapes, and colors of the eggs. Liam chuckled. He knew some people got lucky buying eggs here, but it was mostly a scam, and like a lot of stuff in the game, these pets would become irrelevant. That's why he hadn't bothered with the taming skill yet, but that didn't mean he wasn't interested in pets. He was very interested. 2 particular rare pets, to be exact. But those wouldn't be found here. Thank you, ma'am. Before Liam could finish, Alex interrupted. Hold on. I'll buy all the eggs. The crowd went wild. Several people had their eyes on some eggs, but they were holding back because they cost 1 gold each. But for someone like Alex, that was nothing. She didn't even hesitate before buying them all on a whim. As soon as she saw Liam, her brain had started working. He was clearly up to something, and she was sure it had to do with the eggs. Maybe one of them contained a powerful beast. Yes. That must be it. Why else would he be here? Alex's eyes lit up. She wanted to beat him to it. She quickly paid and carefully placed all the eggs in her inventory. She crossed her arms and turned to Liam, a smug smile on her face. Maybe now you'll have time to talk to me, right? Liam was trying not to laugh. Nope. Still busy. What a kid. He shook his head, ignoring her furious look, and continued talking to the shopkeeper. Congrats, ma'am. You sold everything so fast today. Maybe you have a moment to look at something for me. Alex, still standing next to him, heard this and froze. What the fuck? He wasn't here to buy anything. She felt like she'd been slapped, her mouth hanging open. Chapter 54, I will decline. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Liam pulled the egg from his inventory and handed it to the shopkeeper, who beamed at him. Anything for you, handsome. But her eyes, which had been glued to Liam, sparkling with interest, snapped to the medium-sized egg in her hand. Her expression turned serious as she examined the egg closely. It was a pristine white, without any markings, so clean it felt untouchable. This. Where did you get this? Alex, who had been rolling her eyes at the shopkeeper's obvious flirting, fell silent and listened intently. now she understood why he'd come here instead of buying the eggs on display. Sure, it was a little embarrassing, but she couldn't worry about that now. She quickly pushed it aside and focused on what was happening. "Ah, I just found it in a cave," Liam answered politely with a smile. "Handsome. Can I buy this egg from you? I'll give you 50 gold. This was the same amount Alex had just paid for her big purchase, and she gaped in surprise. That jerk's egg was so valuable. She couldn't believe it. Why did all the good things keep falling into his lap? It was ridiculous. Both Alex and the shopkeeper stared at Liam, practically ready to eat him alive. Liam cleared his throat. "Sorry, but I'm not planning to sell this egg." The shopkeeper's expression shifted again, but Liam wasn't finished. "I was hoping you could help me inspect this egg. I've heard you're the best when it comes to beast eggs," he chuckled. "Could you take a look?" That he flashed another smile, making him even more charming, and the woman immediately blushed. Sure, I can do that for you, handsome." She was back to flirting in a heartbeat. Liam sighed in relief and waited patiently. A few seconds later, a screen popped up with the details. Ding. Beast name. Ding. Beast type, spirit. Ding. Beast attribute, fire. Ding. Beast quality, rare. Liam stared at the information, momentarily speechless. Even with his game knowledge, he hadn't expected to find a spirit-type egg so early. In his previous life, some players had gotten their hands on them, but they weren't particularly strong at first. Their growth was slow, and they needed a lot of resources, but when the tutorial ended, they'd suddenly become top-tier. It turned out that only spirit and soul-type pets could be taken from the tutorial phase into the real apocalyptic world. Anything else that wasn't part of someone's spirit or soul was just an illusion, like these NPCs. That's why Liam hadn't bothered using the tame skill. He knew there was probably a method to it, like with mana usage and control, but he didn't want to spread himself too thin by focusing on everything at once. But since he had this egg, and he was already here, he decided to get it checked out. It turned out to be a stroke of luck. It seemed like everything was pushing him in a certain direction, and now even fate was on his side. Liam grinned. His plans had changed a little, but not much. "Young man, I have to warn you, these types of eggs are tough to hatch. And even if you do, they might not amount to much. I'd still be happy to take it off your hands. How about I offer you 1,000 gold for the egg? I can even give you some information. I just heard rumors about a legendary beast pet. Ding. New quest available, visit the royal city and meet with the innkeeper. Ding. Quest difficulty, S grade. Ding. Do you accept this quest? Y/N. S grade quest, huh? I'll pass, thanks. We're on different paths. Hope you can find someone else to help you." Liam bowed politely and took the egg back. "Ah, what a pity." The shopkeeper looked disappointed and quickly turned to her other customers. Liam had gotten what he wanted, so he didn't stick around. He started walking away. Alex watched him disappear into the crowd and hurried after him, not wanting to lose sight of him. "Hey! Wait a second." Liam left the black market area and headed to the Blacksmiths Association, which he'd previously ignored. Alex followed him and watched as he spoke to someone at the counter and learned the basic smithing skill. So, this guy's just learning a bunch of trade skills without leveling up. But then why did he hunt down that field boss? I don't get his plans at all. Alex checked the time. It was almost noon, so she stepped forward. "So, can we talk now?" "It's noon." "Yup. Follow me." Liam walked to one of the small workspaces in the courtyard, where players interested in blacksmithing were practicing. Here." Alex gulped as she looked around, but he had already started setting up his bench. Chapter 55, Golden Opportunity or. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Alex could tell this guy wasn't about to cut her any slack. She fidgeted, her voice barely a whisper as she began. that thing you mentioned to Mia. I'm ready. It was the best she could manage, despite trying to steel her nerves. Come on, at least act interested. She thought. She bit her lip, frustrated, and looked at him. For a moment, just as she expected, his expression faltered. What are you talking about? Liam was genuinely surprised and wanted to be sure he understood. When she'd called him, he'd assumed it was about some field boss or dungeon. He hadn't expected this. He'd had a feeling they were heading for disaster, so he'd mentioned a way out that would benefit him, too, but he hadn't expected things to move this fast. He figured they wouldn't even consider it until they were completely desperate and out of options, but she was already here. Are you serious? You know what I'm talking about. Alex snapped, chewing on her lip. She knew how this was going to go, but she had no choice but to put up with this jerk's attitude. Liam scratched his head, lost in thought. He'd thought everything started after the trial phase, but maybe something was happening now. Seeing him hesitate, Alex grew impatient. What? I have an S-grade affinity too. Am I not good enough? Liam sighed, silently lifting an anvil and placing it on the workspace. It wasn't that he didn't pity her, having once desperately craved any chance to change his fate, he understood. But this was just the beginning. He couldn't afford to help random strangers. Besides, the people he helped today might turn on him when things got rough. This was his second chance, his only chance. He couldn't risk it all for nothing. Liam remained silent for a moment, then pulled out another item he'd bought on the black market. He handed it to Alex. This is a binding contract. You're right, I can make you stronger, much stronger. But first, you have to sign this. Think it over and come back when you're ready. Huh? What's this? Alex sighed in relief as she scanned the parchment, which was covered in writing. She didn't really care about the contract. She assumed it was about gold, cash, or property. If it was reasonable, she was fine with agreeing to it. Whatever it is. I'm fine. Wait a second. It took her a minute to decipher the words, written in a weird calligraphy. Hey, what is this? Alex looked up, shocked. I have to do everything you tell me. I can't harm you, act against you, or even intend to harm you. This is ridiculous. And how can this stupid game even enforce this stuff? This is basically a slave contract. Are you kidding me? Are you trying to humiliate me? I only came here for mutual benefit. You're the one who suggested this in the first place, remember? Liam ignored her rant and calmly took out some iron ore, stacking it neatly on the table. Though the contract didn't spell it out clearly, Alex wasn't wrong. He had given her a slave contract, he coolly explained, or at least tried to. I'm not trying to humiliate you. It's the opposite. This is an opportunity you might not get again. So take it and think about it. You don't have to accept or reject it now. Take all the time you need. Your life might depend on it. Alex listened silently, unsure how to respond. On one hand, it was incredibly humiliating. On the other hand, he spoke with such confidence that she couldn't dismiss it as nonsense. She stood there, dazed, then shook her head and took a deep breath. What opportunity? Why would her life depend on it? Was this all just crazy talk? The pervert probably just wanted to roleplay as a slave owner. Screw this. Why did I ever think he'd help me? She'd been hesitant from the start, and this sealed it. She watched him toss ore into the smelting fire, completely ignoring her. Damn it. What was I thinking? I don't need anyone's help. Especially his. She took a deep breath, turned, and left the contract on the table. She was almost out the door when Liam spoke again. I'm going to be busy the next few days. Don't contact me again to negotiate. This is it. These are my terms. I won't change my mind. And if you keep bothering me, I'll be forced to cut ties with all three of you completely. Already furious, she clenched her fists, wanting to throw something at him, but she kept walking. Now's not the time. I need to think about Mia first. Humph. But one day, I'll teach that guy a lesson, asterisk. Chapter 56, Quick and Dirty. You are listening at novelfull.audio. As his hands flew, Liam lost himself in the flames, the unexpected visitor already forgotten. He watched the iron ore melt into a single, glowing mass. Quickly, he scooped it out and poured it into a sand mold of a simple sword. After a few seconds for the ore to take shape, he pulled out the rough blade and plunged it into cold water, then, back into the furnace it went, reheating before he placed it on the anvil. Heh! Never thought I'd be doing this again, Liam chuckled, almost lovingly eyeing the weapon as he started hammering, though it wasn't obvious, this was the critical step. The more a weapon was hammered, the stronger it became. Liam had intended to forge a bunch of mediocre swords to quickly level up his skill, but once he started, everything else vanished. He hammered the simple iron sword again and again, as if it were priceless. When the metal cooled, he reheated it and hammered it some more. Sweat drenched him, but he hammered away relentlessly, the metal's grain becoming finer with each strike. He hadn't felt this centered in a while. The familiar rhythm dredged up memories of the past, flooding his senses. Dang! Liam grunted, venting his frustrations with each swing. Dang! 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 Sparks flew as the hammering echoed through the busy smithing association workshop. A few players eyed him. They had seen him chatting with a beautiful woman earlier, a rare sight in the game. Now, he was making a racket, as if he was performing some Herculean feat, which was annoying at best. Lost in his own world, Liam ignored the glares. Each hammer blow landed with care and precision. An hour passed, then 2, then 3, until a system notification finally snapped him out of his trance. Ding. Forging successfully completed. Ding. Overkill iron sword. Ding. Rating, uncommon. Ding. Special effect, when the target is at the last 5% of health, attack damage is doubled. Ding. Your forging skill proficiency has increased to trainee level. Ding. You have obtained the title, Perfectionist. Perfectionist. When the title is equipped, crafting success rates increase by 5%. Liam dropped the hammer and collapsed, exhausted. He had burned through all of his stamina without even realizing it. Since it was just basic iron ore, he managed to finish the sword. If it had been anything else, even a more complex mixture of common ores, he would have collapsed before finishing. Ha! 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 He breathed slowly, closing his eyes. Still a long way to go. After a couple of minutes to recover, he opened his eyes and checked the notifications. Huh! Overkill iron sword? What the heck is that? Liam muttered, reading the description in disbelief. The sword even had a special effect, unheard of for common-grade weapons made from iron ore. How the hell did I forge common ore into an uncommon sword? He glanced at the name again, realizing how fitting it was. Damn it! I wasted a bunch of time on this, didn't I? Liam smiled wryly, admitting he had gotten carried away. Oh! I even got a title. Not bad. The title didn't specify forging, so it likely applied to all trade skills. He nodded in approval and moved on. It was a nice bonus, but temporary. When the trial ended, everyone would lose their titles and in-game status. Ultimately, it was just another tool to achieve his goals. Taking a deep breath, Liam stood up and grabbed the sword. Time to get serious. To get the best rewards from the hidden quest, he needed to reach Master Proficiency in smithing. He was confident he could reach Intermediate, the next step from his current trainee level. Master, however, presented a few challenges, but nothing he couldn't solve by throwing money at the problem. So, he wasn't too worried. Liam quickly started working again, focusing on speed and efficiency, not quality. It was the fastest way to level up, quick and dirty. He tossed in another batch of iron ore and cleaned his station while it melted. Then, he used another common sword mold, pouring the molten metal in carelessly. This time, he limited himself to a few dozen hammer blows before sharpening the edges and finishing the weapon. Ding. Forging successfully completed. Ding. Crude iron sword. ding. Rating, common. Liam glanced at the sword. It looked dull and worthless. Heh. That's more like it. 1 down, 100 to go. He tossed it aside and started the next one without a second thought. Chapter 57, Why are you in such a hurry? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ilika City was the Gresh Kingdom's trade hub, so it was packed with people at every turn. Players flocked there, hunting for quests and opportunities to get ahead in the game. Even in that crazy crowd, the Blacksmiths Association really stood out. Weapons were key in most games, so that made sense. When two players were matched in level, skills, and attributes, a weapon could be the deciding factor, especially custom-made ones offered later in the game. A ton of players had already learned blacksmithing and were at the association, looking for quests, recipes, and ways to level up. The NPCs were swamped, everyone competing to talk to them. But in a quiet corner of the courtyard, one guy was churning out swords, one after another, while others were bending over backward to get everything perfect. He looked like he couldn't care less. Liam just kept going, working like a machine. His hands tossed finished swords into a pile, and he kept at it without slowing down. Some people noticed him, but everyone was too busy to pay attention to what looked like someone pointlessly wasting materials. The way he was throwing those swords down, they figured he was just failing at every forging. Hey! Don't be like that guy. You should melt the ore longer. I heard that makes it better and gives the weapon more power. Yeah. His stuff is probably failing because he isn't hammering them enough. He barely even tempers them. Even though Liam wasn't doing anything special, his focus attracted some attention, but thankfully, after a quick glance, everyone lost interest. His technique was just that bad. He seemed to be doing the bare minimum, and sometimes not even that. Everyone was busy with their own training, so no one bothered him. However, there was one exception. The Blacksmiths Association was a tower, and on the 20th floor, someone was watching Liam closely. It was an old man, calmly sipping tea, not showing any emotion. But he saw even the smallest things Liam did. No one knew what he was thinking, or why he was interested in the kid everyone else ignored. Should I bring him up, master? Someone standing next to him asked respectfully. The old man just waved him off, but a second later, the man appeared next to Liam as the next batch of ore sizzled in the furnace. The man spoke. May I see that sword? Liam nearly dropped the mold he was holding. He hadn't noticed anyone nearby. What was that about? He took a breath and recovered quickly. He was focused on forging, so he probably just missed it. He didn't think too much about it and looked at the NPC in front of him. The old man was trying to chat, and he seemed like an NPC, though it was hard to tell players and NPCs apart. It was easier in the beginning. This must be an NPC from the association. Sure thing, sir. Liam quickly handed over the sword and went back to forging. He already had the quest he wanted, so he didn't bother trying to get another one. He was actually hoping the guy would leave so he wouldn't be swarmed by other players. But the old man didn't share Liam's concerns. He ran his fingers over the plain, common sword. His eyes lit up as if he was examining every detail of the weapon, and when he was done, he surprisingly looked at Liam. Ho ho! A flicker of surprise flashed across his face before disappearing. Son, why are you in such a rush? The old man asked calmly. Liam was surprised again. If he was criticizing his technique, he would have pointed out what Liam was doing wrong. He could have commented on any of the forging steps, but asking why he was in a rush, as if he knew what Liam was capable of. No, I'm thinking too much. Liam shook his head. He pushed his thoughts aside and gave a generic reply, still hammering his next weapon. Sorry, sir. I'm just a trainee. My technique isn't great. I hope I didn't offend you. Chapter 58, I will come find you. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Talking to NPCs, Liam knew it was always best to be humble and respectful, so he followed that rule. He might not need a quest from this guy, but he didn't want to randomly tick him off, especially since he was connected to the Blacksmith Association, so he ignored the question and gave a generic reply while continuing what he was doing. The elder wasn't about to let him off the hook that easily, though. Not that good, huh? Then how did you manage to craft this one? He reached into the pile of iron swords and pulled out the very first sword Liam had forged to perfection. Liam was surprised again. What was going on? As far as he knew, there were only 5 hidden quests and 2 unique quests in the entire Gresh kingdom, so this guy couldn't possibly be that important, and yet, his instincts told him otherwise. From their short conversation, Liam could already tell the man was more than he seemed. It's very kind of you to look at my sword and my amateur forging. He bowed and cut to the chase. Is there any way I can repay your kindness? Ha! Of course, you can, but there's no rush. I see the path you want to take. I'll find you when the time is right. Liam didn't even get a chance to ask about the vague answer before the old man turned and headed back to the Blacksmith Association Tower. What the heck? Liam wondered. Even though he was a reincarnate and knew a lot about the game, he wasn't all-knowing. There were definitely more tricks in the tutorial he wasn't aware of, but chasing down every trick in the game and trying to do everything would only end in failure. He didn't have much time left to accomplish what he wanted. He didn't want to waste his precious time on vague hints that might lead nowhere. Liam pushed his thoughts aside and went back to grinding his forging skill. However, in his confusion, he completely missed something. Even though the elder walked among the crowd of players around the other smithing association NPCs, no one seemed to notice him. It was almost as if he wasn't there. Oblivious, Liam continued forging swords for the next few hours, using up all of his iron ore. Just as he finished the last sword, the notification he was waiting for popped up. Ding. Forging successfully completed. Ding. Crude iron sword. Ding. Rating, common. Ding. Your forging skill proficiency has increased to intermediate level. Alright. Now for the hard part. Liam wiped his forehead and tossed a couple of berries into his mouth. Chewing, he left the association and headed toward the Alika City auction house. Enough time had passed by now, so Liam figured more raw materials would be up for auction, especially with the high in-game gold to real money exchange rate. Larger groups might still try to hoard materials, but the temptation was usually too great for individual players. Just as he expected, stacks of tin ore, bronze ore, copper ore, and iron ore were available. There was even a stack of striped iron ore. Liam didn't hesitate and quickly bought everything he could. Some players had jacked up the prices, but he didn't care and bought roughly what he thought he needed, and a little extra just in case. Ding. Congratulations. Tin ore X500 have been purchased. Ding. Congratulations. Bronze ore X500 have been purchased. Ding. Congratulations. Copper ore X500 have been purchased. Ding. Congratulations. Iron ore X500 have been purchased. Ding. Congratulations. Striped iron ore X20 have been purchased. The last one was the most expensive, with the seller asking 1 gold apiece, almost 10 times its worth, but Liam bought it anyway, running through recipes in his mind. This should be enough. He muttered and walked back to the Blacksmith Association. This time, he didn't go back to the courtyard. Instead, he booked one of the expensive smithing rooms at the reception desk. He paid the 5 gold coins and booked the high-grade smithing room for a generous amount of time. The room wasn't anything special, but it had a variety of molds, and the hammer was rare quality. That was Liam's goal, since forging uncommon grade equipment would be much easier and faster with a better hammer. Plus, after what just happened, he decided to buy some privacy. Just iron ore might not attract attention, but if he pulled out a bunch of ores and herbs, he'd have unwanted company again. Liam didn't really care. But right now, he needed to make sure he wasn't disturbed. It was crucial for him to finish the quest as quickly as possible, because speed alone wouldn't be enough this time. He took a deep breath and started tossing stacks of ore into the burning furnace, where they quickly melted. Chapter 59, Mana Forging. You are listening at novelfull.audio. 2 copper bars, 2 tin bars, 1 iron bar, and 1 bronze bar. Liam carefully measured out the ores, adding them in the correct proportions. As they began to melt, he tossed in a few stone flower stalks, sparks flew as the herb mixed into the molten metal. The crimson color of the flower spread quickly, turning the entire mixture blood red. Liam poured the molten mixture into a sword mold. He quenched it in cold water, then reheated it before starting to hammer rhythmically. Even though the rare-grade hammer was borrowed and only for forging, he couldn't help but feel excited holding it. His heart pounded in his chest. His blood surged through his veins, mirroring the excitement in his mind. Dang. Dang. Dang, star. The crisp sounds echoed in the private crafting room as Liam hammered the ore. His movements slowed, and he paused. In his previous life, when he had first started playing the game, blacksmithing had been his main skill. He'd made this exact sword before. The recipe was pretty common. Back then, his terrible stats had made it a real struggle. Plus, he had started playing late, so he was always behind. That was one reason things had gone downhill so fast, eventually leading him to become someone else's slave. But this time, he had something he didn't have before, the ability to use mana. Liam glanced at the setup and the rare-grade hammer. Even if I fail, I'm going to try. But he took a deep breath, more focused than ever. His hands hammered the raw weapon on the anvil again. This time, though, each strike had something extra, just like how he tried to infuse mana into his sword slashes when fighting the Bear King. Liam now tried to channel mana into his hammer strikes. This wasn't some brand new idea. Only white, common, and uncommon weapons could be made with regular techniques. Anything better required special materials and, more importantly, special skills. Even the rare-grade hammer was probably crafted using some specialized technique, most likely, mana infusion. Liam focused the strands of mana swirling within him, guiding them to his arms, enveloping the hammer. Dang. Dang. Dang, star. The sounds were louder now, each strike hitting the sword with greater force. Huh. After a few more tries, Liam's eyes widened. It suddenly felt easier than he'd expected. Fighting the Bear King had been chaotic, forcing him to focus on a million things at once and predict its attacks. Now, without a knife to his throat, he could focus completely. He could control and regulate the flow of mana better, hammering it into the metal, integrating it into the grain. He knew this could push the forging to the next level, but that was secondary. Learning to control and manipulate mana was his main goal. Without it, he could use every trick he knew, but he would never be strong enough to change his fate. But if he could master mana, everything would be easier. Liam grinned, his muscles pulsing with each movement. It was exhausting, mentally and physically, but he kept going. He had wanted this ability for so long, and now that it was real, he wasn't going to let fatigue stop him. This was the first chain that had held him back in his last life, and now he knew how to break it. He would shatter it completely, once and for all. Dang. Dang. Dang, star. The metal vibrated but held as more and more mana was forced into it, tempering it from the inside out. Slowly but surely, everything fell into place. After almost an hour, the completion notification popped up. Ding. Forging successfully completed. Ding. Crimson sword. Ding. Rating, uncommon. Heh. Liam chuckled, picking up the sword. It had a bright silver sheen with a red tinge, as if it had just drawn blood. He swung it around. The balance was perfect, like an extension of his arm. It was definitely better than his current sword. He could sell it for 20 or 30 silver coins, easy. Not bad. He tossed the sword aside like the previous common ones. It was good, but not good enough. If he had truly succeeded, the grade would have increased, and it would have been rare. He still had a long way to go, but he didn't care. He wiped the sweat from his forehead and started the process again. And again. And again. Chapter 60, Quest Complete. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Lost in forging, Liam hammered away until he'd crafted over a dozen swords, finally completing his quest. Ding. Forging successful. Ding. Crimson sword. Ding. Rating, uncommon. Ding. Forging skill advanced to master level. Liam casually dismissed the notifications. Good progress, but his mana control still wasn't where he wanted it. Asterisk clang, asterisk he tossed the finished sword onto the pile of crimson-tinged weapons, he stashed everything in his inventory, left the crafting room, and headed out of the Blacksmith Association. The only requirement was reaching Master Forging level within the first 72 hours. Quest submission time didn't matter, besides, he couldn't submit the quest until the black market event started again anyway, so, without a second thought, Liam stepped out onto the city streets, exchanged some gold for cash, and logged off. He'd spent way longer in the game than he planned, and it was already noon the next day. He knew his sister could take care of herself, but he didn't want to be irresponsible and leave her alone for too long. Luckily, 48 hours in the game equaled 24 hours. In the real world, so he hadn't messed up too badly. Liam's vision faded to black before he snapped back to reality, opening the game capsule. Two worried eyes immediately greeted him. "Brother. You were gone forever. Are you okay? Did something happen?" That he chuckled, patting the little girl who was probably the only person who cared about him. "Sorry for making you worry, Mei Mei. I'm fine. Just ran late. Did you eat properly? Did you get any exercise?" She nodded, giving him a quick hug before rushing off to heat up a plate of food for him. "Eat up, brother. You skipped a bunch of meals." "Yes, ma'am." Liam pinched her cheeks and obediently sat down to eat. "So, what do you want to do today?" he asked playfully. "Oh. I don't want to do anything. Please just rest and get some sleep." Mei Mei looked flustered, quickly rejecting the offer. Was her brother suddenly superhuman? He'd been gaming all day, yet he looked fresh and energetic instead of like a zombie. "What? Nothing you want to do?" Liam chuckled. "I have something in mind, though. Wanna guess?" He teased her lovingly. "Oh man. I'm so confused. Why are you messing with me?" "Ha ha ha. Alright, alright. Looks like you already forgot. Didn't I tell you? We're moving to a new place today. Why don't you get changed, and then we can head out?" "Wait, seriously? Brother, are you for real?" Mei Mei shot to her feet, shocked and surprised. She couldn't believe what he was saying. Of course, she remembered, but she figured he was just trying to make her feel better. She didn't want to bring it up and ruin the mood, and now, a few minutes later, brother and sister were ready and leaving their cramped apartment. "Brother, this apartment is fine. Do we really have to move?" Mei Mei glanced back at their small rental, then at her brother's back as she hurried to catch up. She didn't want him to overwork himself and ruin his health just for a little extra comfort. Heh heh. "So, what you're saying is you don't want your own room? You'll miss me too much." "What a crybaby." Liam chuckled. "No way. I'm not a crybaby." The little girl was speechless. She nudged him with her elbow, pouting as they walked. "I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I know Mei Mei's a strong girl." The two siblings chatted, enjoying the nice day. Liam bought her some snacks on the way, and then they took public transport to a completely different part of the city. The streets were clean, the buildings new and sparkling, with only high-end shops on either side of the road. Just from the scenery, it was clear that only the rich and elite could afford to live here. "Brother, why are we here?" Mei Mei grew nervous just walking down the street. Everyone was staring at them, giving them judgmental looks. It was obvious they didn't belong. "Brother, let's go back." The girl clung tightly to Liam's arm, looking afraid. Liam sighed and gently patted her. He never wanted to see her scared again. "No need to be afraid. We're almost there." He'd already found a place for them. A cozy apartment in a new complex with all the features he wanted, not to mention the top-notch security. He wouldn't have to worry about his sister's safety when things got tricky. This would be their house for now, and later on, their base. Liam clenched his fists, thinking about the future. He was anxious, but also excited. After all, this time, everything was going to be different. As the brother and sister turned a corner, chatting, they unexpectedly ran into some familiar faces. Well, isn't this our missing punching bag?